Good morning, Todd. What did you make of these last few days for the Seahawks? Geno out, Darnold in. What do you think?
I like it. Let me preface all of this. I think I've thought for a little while now that Geno Smith is kind of, and I don't know, Brock, if you agree, kind of criminally undervalued and underrated with that offensive line. Yes, he's had weapons, but with that protection, like 8,000 yards the last 2 years, 41 touchdowns, whatever the numbers are. I really appreciate him as a quarterback. When I watch him and study him, I really appreciate the way he plays the game. However, you're John Schneider, right? And you're looking at the whole equation. And you've got a 34-year-old quarterback in Geno. You've got DK, who's, kind of ready to explore other options. Tyler Lockett up there in age. And you're saying to yourself, we got to get younger. We've got to get younger on the offensive side. Maybe we're not 1 year away. Maybe it's 2 years away. But we've got to rebuild this thing. And I just go back to when John took over. And I've known John for a long time. Like Jim Nagy and I worked together, the former executive director of the Senior Bowl, and they worked together. John and Jim did in Green Bay. And John grew up in an organization that believes heavily in drafting, creating the foundation, building your roster that way with the Packers. And he brought that with him to Seattle. Remember those first four drafts, like 2010, 11, 12, and 13?
Oh, yeah.
He had 9, 10, and 11 picks in those 4 years. Throughout his entire tenure in Seattle, only 1 year has he had fewer than 8 draft picks. That's his background, if you will. And so I look at this, and it's not because I'm sure you guys hear it. I'm sure people in Seattle are like, we're tearing this thing down. We're completely rebuilding. I don't look at it this way. I think it's smart roster management. I think it's looking for opportunity to build for the future. You just went from 34 years old to 27 at quarterback. You got rid of a quarterback who's outstanding, but you did so bringing in a quarterback who last year played to that kind of level, and the hope is he'll continue to play to that level and be able to finish the season better than he did this year. But by reducing 7 years on that quarterback, you now have a little bit of time to build this the right way. And they also, the most important thing is, in those drafts I talked about, the first 3 years as the GM, he drafted 8 Pro Bowlers with all those draft picks. And then 4 years in a row with the numbers that he had, they wound up going and winning a Super Bowl. So I think John's kind of like, let's go back to our roots. This is what we do. Let's bring in a quarterback that allows us to be younger, gives us a couple years to stack draft picks. And right now they've got 11 picks, according to my count. I think that's right. Mm-hmm. And compensatories haven't come out. And they've got 5 picks in the top 92 in a draft that's not loaded at the top, but because of NIL, some lingering effects of the COVID redshirt years, and the transfer portal. It's like this perfect storm where the depth of this class is really good in rounds 2 through 4 or 5. I think he's viewing this as an opportunity to get younger on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to focus on offensive line, wide receiver, and a few other positions.
So let's say they do all that and he nails it. Mm-hmm. Do they become a Super Bowl worthy kind of a roster? If and when they make the Super Bowl, is Sam Darnold their quarterback, or is it because they've also drafted along the way the next franchise quarterback for this franchise?
I view Sam Darnold, I think the plan was, and I haven't talked to John about this, but I would assume the plan was that they felt really strongly they could bring in Sam Darnold. And if that's plan A and they executed it, they no longer have to be in the quarterback market. Now, like any good general manager, if someone's sitting there in round 2 or 3 that you have a really high grade on and you think, let's bring him in and we'll develop him. They did that with, was it Matt Flynn, right? And Russell Wilson.
Same year.
Matt Flynn was supposed to be the guy. And then they drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. We hope that Russell Wilson can be what we hope he can, we expect him to be. But we've got Matt Flynn here too. So I don't think they would turn down an opportunity, but I truly believe they're out of the we need to draft a quarterback market. Now, had it been plan B with like an Aaron Rodgers or a different veteran, which is kind of a more bridge the gap 1 year type of deal, then absolutely we're talking about them at 18. Are they moving up? Do they like Jackson Dart from Ole Miss? Tyler Shuck, I think is very much underrated, is someone they're going to target late in the first, early second. So that would have been the conversation. That to me is out the window because you got 7 years younger at quarterback.
5 of the top 92 picks. Todd McShay here with us this morning for the first time in way too long. 5 of the top 92. Can you find a starting plug-and-play guard and maybe another quality offensive lineman in one of those 5 of 92 picks?
I think absolutely. I mean, it's not a sexy pick, but best case might be that Tyler Booker from Alabama, the highest character player according to several personnel people have talked to in the entire draft if he falls to 18, but I don't know that he'll be there, and he's a guard. But that tells you if he's not there at 18 how highly regarded he is. But beyond that, like Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, who kicked out from guard his entire career to left tackle and held up pretty well this past year, would be an option early round 2. Gray Zabel from North Dakota State has a sensational. He's another North Dakota State guy, went to the Senior Bowl and blew up. Some people are talking maybe late first. I think he could be there somewhere in the second. Marcus Bow from Purdue, a tackle, can kick into guard. Very athletic, still developing. Tate Ratledge from Georgia. There's a lot of quality guards in this class. And then some of the tackles potentially could kick inside the guard as well. I think John realized the positions we need, there's a lot of depth in rounds 2 and 3. Wide receiver, guard, tackle, and then a couple other of the spots. But I truly believe you take the best player at 18, and hopefully it fills a void. But with those 4 picks in round, what is it, 50, 52, yep. 82, and 92?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so those are 4 really important picks for Seattle, but they're also in areas of the draft where I feel like you're getting better quality than in most years.
But, Todd, you got to understand, you talked about Geno earlier, criminally underrated, especially with the pressure in the O-line and everything else. There's many, maybe some in this market, certainly some national voices, that would be very concerned about starting a rookie guard or counting on a rookie offensive lineman. What has history shown with the first and second round offensive guards through the years, Todd? Can those guys legitimately, truly come in and be difference makers? Not just placeholders, but can they come in and be difference makers if they're taken with that kind of value?
I think it's actually, to be honest, gotten better. I mean, I can remember 10 or so years ago where you would worry about that, but you're seeing a lot of guys just plug and play. I think the other thing with offensive linemen, just like a lot of other positions, guys are playing more ball and coming in with more experience, more games started because of the NIL, because of the transfer portal to a lesser degree with offensive linemen. But I look at all these guys like Booker, a lot of games at Alabama. Donovan Jackson, the versatility he showed this year, a lot of wars he battled. Gray Zabel, like all of those guys. They're not like – we used to have a lot of guys where it's 3 years in college, 2 years as a starter coming in. We're seeing a lot more 4 years in college, 3 years as a starter. Mm-hmm. And that 1 year can make a huge difference.
If you decide to go defense at number 18, which I would not mind, obviously, the offensive line is the big need, but you got a chance to maybe turn this defensive front 7 into something great with another either interior D lineman or an edge rusher, or is there somebody in that 18 range who could help make that group even better than it is?
I look at the interior defensive line. It is loaded with a lot of players. Like we start with Mason Graham from Michigan, right? Kenneth Grant to me is the second best defensive tackle. He's a teammate of Graham's at Michigan. After that, I think that we're going to have a little, because everyone's going to be like, wait, everyone was pumping this interior defensive line group up. It's supposed to be one of the best we've ever seen, but it could be until the second round when they start really coming off the board. And that's where I think like Derek Harmon, late first from Oregon, Darius Alexander, late first, early second from Toledo, Walter Nolan, Ole Miss, TJ Sanders from South Carolina, Shamar Turner from A&M, Alfred Collins from Texas, Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee. Like, there's a lot of guys in that second, third round range that I think are plug and play either starters or kind of in a rotation early in their career. You look at the edge class. The edge class is intriguing to me because you've got obviously Abdul Carter early, James Pierce and Mike Green. We're going to deal with maybe dropping a little bit due to some off the field character stuff, but not too far. Ezeruku from Boston College is in that mix, but I think he's going to be later first. And after that, there's a lot of good guys in the second round as well. So those are two groups that are deep, and I think you can take advantage of that. Again, I view offensive line for Seattle and now wide receiver as two of the areas that they're going to have to focus on, but it doesn't mean all 5 of those picks in the top 92 are going to go there. There's depth to be had along the defensive front with 1 or 2 of those other picks.
Yeah, Salk always gets a little concerned about Boston College pass rushers and
No,
what is it? Prep school wide receivers, like the prep school, the Jake Bobos.
Just since Jake Bobo's come in, Belmont Hill of all places, it's just disgusting.
He's like 20 miles away from me, Andover kid.
Well, yeah, and he went to Belmont Hill. I went to BB&N. This was like a huge problem for me. Yeah.
I don't think I realized that.
Oh yeah,
Silver Spoon guy.
Yeah, I got a lot.
I mean, hey, by the way, Brock, I know you know Silver Spoon, but it's like the most silver. It's like platinum.
No,
spoon.
it isn't.
In the team.
Whoa! Don't you dare!
All right, it is.
It is like the really rich kids go to like Philip Andover and Exeter or something.
Yeah, it's
but
not
like
bad.
the ones that are like beyond go where Salk went to school.
Yes, Silver Spoon right in the
I think
team.
you grew up with my friend Matt Coyden, didn't you? In Swampscott?
Yeah, Matt Coyden.
Yeah, friend of mine. All right. Anyway, whatever. You know what? That's enough.
Oh, well, let me get back then to the wide receivers, please.
This is the kind of grief I take.
Because right now we got JSN, stud, breakout year, phenomenal player.
Yep.
No Tyler Lockett, no DK. Then we get to Bobo, Derek, kind of just guys at the bottom of the roster. Who is going to be a second or third receiver? Is there somebody, once again, within these top 92 picks that you would be like, ooh, yeah, that's a John Schneider guy. Ooh, that's a Clint Kubiak system guy. Ooh, that's come in and plug and play right away and be a productive rookie receiver.
I think the best receiver in this class is Matthew Golden from Texas, and I think he ran the second fastest time of anyone at the combine, so that's gonna boost him up. It's interesting because you go back and watch Texas, and he was, I don't want to say an afterthought, but he was not the featured guy early in the year. They were trying to make Isaiah Bond that guy, and he had struggles with drops and injuries. And when Golden became that guy, the Texas offense started to take off a little bit. And I just like his route running ability, how crisp he is.
You taking him at 18? If he's there at 18?
Depending on who else is there in terms of offensive line.
Uh-huh.
But I would have no problem taking him at 18 with his speed and his ability to adjust to the football. I think he's a damn good football player. I'm not as high on Ted McMillan from Arizona as some people.
Me too.
But he does have a huge catch radius, could fill that X void. Kind of a lot of the same traits that Drake London has, but like it took Drake a year to adjust to the NFL and become the 1,000+ receiving yard entity that he was this past year. I think McMillan's going to have a little bit of that curve as well. Beyond that, like there are some guys, and I don't know that they're going to get to the second round is the thing though. But I absolutely think Mika Ibuka. But he's another slot type receiver, great zone possession guy. I'm in love with the Iowa State guys. I would draft him late in the first round and sleep really well on Thursday night. Jaden Higgins is your big physical X, who's like maybe the best press release package of the receivers in this class. Knows how to get open, really good hands. Jalen Noel is undersized, but I think he's not Ladd McConkey. But he's a little bit smaller version of Ladd McConkey.
Yeah.
All right.
He's the guy you compared to Doug Baldwin, Brock?
Oh, he's so strong, explosive, quick. Yeah. I mean, just off the charts strength, off the charts explosiveness, off the charts toughness, kind of elevated Iowa State. I always like that, Todd. I don't know about you, but guys that elevate programs that haven't historically had the most talent, and that dude is a monster.
Hey, can you fast forward a year for me? Let's say the Darnold thing does not go A+, that it's okay.
We're already starting that?
Hey, it's a hypothetical. If it doesn't go as well
we didn't bring
as
you on and talk about the 25 25 draft, Todd.
I'm just curious. 26 draft. Where are
I
you?
feel
on
like
the
I am
quarterback?
with Kuiper again. Like we'd be sitting on the desk on Friday
Seriously.
night, like round 3, and Kuiper would get bored, and he'd do this. You see me?
Yeah.
If you're only listening, like he breaks like 4 or 5 rocking chairs a year doing this, back and forth, back. So he'd be sitting in his chair at the desk, bouncing back and forth. We're in commercial break. All right, Todd. So who do you have number 3? The way too early mock next year. And I'm like, Kuip, like let's at least get to
first.
Let's get to round 6 before we start this.
Here's the only reason I ask: if you're the Seahawks and you feel like you need your franchise quarterback and you like the 26 class better, is there an opportunity to trade one of your second-round picks this year, get back into the first round a second time next year to give yourself some flexibility? Either you've got 2 picks or maybe you can trade up with them or whatever. How do you feel about the possibility of doing that and then about the 26 quarterback class?
I think there's a possibility that if you want to trade out of 18 to try to pick up maybe a first next year, although I just don't see who would be moving up in that range. I think what you could do is start stockpiling picks for next year. And that would mean giving up maybe pick 50 for a team that wants to move up and get like a third next, or a second next year or a third next year. So there's ways to maneuver around so that all of a sudden you wake up on Sunday morning after the draft and you've already added 2 picks to that allotment for next year. And then you start working next year on packaging some of those picks plus a first the following year in 2027 to go move up for a Garrett Nussmeier from LSU if that's the first quarterback off the board. So, yeah, the potential's there. But again, and maybe I'm wrong. Like you guys have a better pulse on it. I don't think John went out and brought in Sam Darnold for that money with the thought of, this will get us through the next year or two, but we need to be aggressively forward thinking towards who we're going to draft next year. I don't know. I think you're always strategizing to maximize picks and the compensation and get opportunity for the following year. I think look at Howie Roseman. Like he can't sit still on draft weekend, and it's kind of a joke inside the league. Like here comes Howie again. Almost like the ADHD, right? But what he's always doing is getting like an extra pick or 2 for the next year, maneuvering around and getting himself in a position where if he needs it, it's there to try to package picks and go up and get a guy that he wants.
Great stuff. Thank you, Todd. We appreciate it. We know you're from that poor little hamlet in Swampscott, just a sad, downtrodden spot up on the North Shore.
We're like an industrial fisherman town,
Yeah, Swampscott, Marblehead. Very, very, it's hard.
No,
hard living on the water like that.
Marblehead's more your BB&N crowd, The way we always describe Swampscott keeps Lynn out of Marblehead.
That's probably true. Actually, that actually sounds about right. Thanks, man. We appreciate it. We'll talk again. There's Todd McShay, who we know had to run here. So great stuff.